Eric. My first guest, Vice President of Research at the Government Accountability Institute and the author of Fraud, How the Left Plans to Steal the Next Election. He's also the co-host of the Drill Down with Peter Schweitzer podcast. Happy to have Eric Eggers with us. I apologize, sir. We're waiting on Baker, and he's like late and stuff, so we called you. Thank you for getting into that seat.
Hey, whatever time works for you, Eric. I'm here for you.
We are live TV, and we got to roll with the punches, as they say. Eric, really good to have you. So tell us, Peter Schweitzer's a friend of mine. He's a great analyst. I would love to, I know you have some things to talk about. I really want to talk about China, specifically with what's going on with the Middle East, with Iran, with our conflict with Iran. China is the one, well, obviously Iran is getting hurt the most, but outside of Iran, I would say China has the most risk if the Hormuz Strait continues to be blockaded. How did you read the meeting with Xi Jinping and President Trump last week?
Yeah, I thought it was, Donald Trump arriving as the ultimate convening authority. Eric, you remember everyone used to fawn over Bill Clinton with his Clinton Global Initiative, everything. I was like, oh, Bill's so connected. He's the coolest guy in the room, and he can just bring all these different people together. Well, Donald Trump literally brought the president of China together with the top American businessmen. And I thought it was, we'll see how big of a win it is for the conflict in Iran, but I do believe it's a win for President Trump, because ultimately President Trump showing President Xi, listen, you want access to like the best chips in the world with NVIDIA? Well, I had Jensen Huang get on the plane in Alaska. I'm bringing him to you, and only with my permission will you be able to buy some of the chips. Not the best chips, but you'll be able to buy some. And oh, by the way, American business people, I know you want very much to have access to this Chinese market. Of course you do. You will do so through me. Like everything, like Donald Trump is actually the commerce edition of the Strait of Hormuz. It's the Strait of Trump. Everything comes through him. He's the decider on who goes, who stays. And oh, by the way, when you got midterms coming up and you got the top leaders of the top companies in the world, and he's like, look, remember, like, it's with me and the Republican Party that you have access to these new business deals. Those businesses are leaving California in droves. We did a podcast on this a few weeks ago. So the left leadership, they have rejected. They chose to travel with the president, with the leader of the Republican Party to go start new business ventures. So we'll see how it shakes out with Iran. China's obviously very incentivized to make stuff happen because they're receiving a ton of pressure economically in terms of oil and everything else. But I thought it was a big win for President Trump.
Do you think the comment that came out of Trump came back and one of the big issues was Taiwan. Trump didn't want to talk about it. Apparently there was a little sniping, quietly under their belt. I think China clearly wants to take Taiwan and doesn't want the United States to interfere. We don't have any sort of treaty not to, but we have this unspoken, unwritten rule that we were going to protect Taiwan. And the reason why I ask you this, Eric, is because you mentioned chips. Somewhere 85% of the world's chips come out of Taiwan. We let that go. We should have been doing that here, but they did. They have it. If China takes Taiwan back, we lose this AI race, don't we?
No, absolutely. I think one of the cool things about the Trump administration this time, and Eric, you know this because you talk about this in such a smart way all the time, but they're very honest, I think, and they tell you exactly what's happening. You heard Marco Rubio on the plane ride over say, look, we know that China has a plan, and the Trump administration is honest about what China's plan is, and they're honest about the impact China's plan has had on us historically. Scott Bessent gave this long interview, and he talked about how when they first took over, we learned during COVID, we don't want to be beholden to China on a number of things. We don't want to be beholden to them on raw earth minerals. We don't want to be beholden to them on the things that are key to so much technology, but we also don't want to be beholden to them when it comes to medical equipment. That was one of the big lessons from COVID, all the PPE and all the different medical devices that we needed. So Taiwan is such a smart point. Of course, we don't want to let China be in charge. And we just sold a bunch of U.S. military equipment, I believe, missiles and other armaments to Taiwan. And I don't blame Donald Trump for not wanting to lead with or talk publicly about something that he and President Xi and the Chinese Communist Party might disagree on, because I think they're trying to make a lot of progress on other fronts.
Yeah, but here's my concern, Eric. I agree with you. A lot of these things, it's a delicate dance, especially when we got a conflict going on in Iran. We just, I guess we took Venezuela. I'm not sure what we're doing. I think Marco Rubio is the new president of Venezuela, among other things, and the DJ at the White House. But I digress. So here's the issue. To Trump's comment, I'm reading this was the Fox News after he returned from China. He said, he's not looking to travel 9,500 miles to fight a war in Taiwan's defense. What is it? I mean, I'm Xi Jinping going, that sounds like an open door to me, right? Does it to you?
I think it's a leverage point. I think to your point, I think it's Donald Trump signaling that is it's not off the table. And look, at the end of the day, I mean, the United States has done some things geopolitically without permission of other people. Obviously, we've launched attacks in Iran. I'm not sure that we asked China's permission before we went and enacted regime change in Venezuela. So I think it's one of, I'd like to say Donald Trump went to China with carrots and sticks. And, I think that he always kind of keeps it close to the vest in terms of gaining leverage and what the ultimate negotiating sticking points will be. But I think for Donald Trump to suggest, I mean, maybe he was honest to the fault, but to him to suggest otherwise, that we would travel 9,500 miles across the globe to fight a war in Taiwan.
So dumb question, E. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Why the hell travel 6,000 miles to open the Strait of Hormuz when we get very little of our oil through that strait?
Well, listen, I think it's a great question, and it's a question that a number of people are asking. And you don't hear me defending military action in either locale, but I do think that obviously they're both very important economic areas. They're very important geopolitical areas because of the economics that they portend, which is why I think Donald Trump is trying to not cede ground willingly, although that comment that you just referenced was maybe, let's call it, surprisingly transparent.
That's surprisingly transparent. I like that. That's a very political way of putting it. Quickly, Russia, they're watching this whole thing go on. They're loving it. They're loving, see us deplete our kinetic weapons stash, or so to speak. Not that they would mess with us if they can't even handle Ukraine. But what is their take on this whole play?
Well, I'm not sure if you noticed, I'm sure you did, but it's almost like Vladimir Putin was playing the role of China's side piece, because as soon as Trump and the American diplomats left, enter Moscow and Vladimir Putin and everybody else.
He's going to come after you for calling Xi Jinping's side piece. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but it's right though, right?
Hey, Eric said it. Hey, Putin. That Eric said it, not me, not this Eric.
Look, Eric, this is what I get for showing up on time, man. You put me in this chair, you ask me the hard questions, and no, but I do think that obviously Russia was paying a lot of attention, and I do think the sequencing of events was important on a number of fronts, and I think it's not an accident or coincidence that Vladimir Putin went and engaged in that kind of discussion with President Xi as soon as the American delegation left.
What are your final thoughts here? And I'm out here saying, against popular opinion, against the kind of the echo chamber of MAGA that says, Bolling, you're panicking or you're whining. But my concern is $4 price of gas, $4.50 right now. Even with a big move down in oil today, you're going to see $4.50, even $5 for the short-term 6-week future. That's very difficult going into a midterm election. Will people forget it if he gets the price down in, say, October for a November election?
Well, let me ask you a different way, Eric. Do you think it matters? And here's what I mean. And would we be making different decisions if the Supreme Court ruling on the Louisiana congressional district went a different way? Because what that opens up is a net gain of potentially 11 congressional seats, which means control of the House is much more of a nearly certain thing, just in terms of the math and which seats are going to be up for grabs. Obviously, Florida, where I live, added 4 seats. You're seeing Jim Clyburn's seat in South Carolina being taken off the table. So I think whether gas is really high or not, and certainly I think they're all incentivized to bring things down, especially when you campaign on ending the inflation under Joe Biden, and you're saying we want to make America affordable again. You've now had 2 years, and gas prices are so central to every aspect of that, because everything I buy at the store gets there on a truck, either by diesel or gas, right? Mm-hmm. So it matters. But I do wonder if they feel a little bit less pressure politically to get gas prices down than they would have if that ruling went a different way, because they face less of a threat in the midterms with some of these seats. That's just a thing I'm paying attention to. I don't know what your reaction to that is.
So I would agree with that. I think it gives a little bit of the kind of the pressure released from the balloon if it were going to explode, because it looked like it was going to. I'll tell you what else would work if you get that Supreme Court, that seat, if you get Trump to be able to appoint his, 4th Supreme Court justice, if the Supreme Court justice retires. So you would get his 4th. That would help a lot, because you want to keep support on Capitol Hill to make sure you get your pick through the system. Very quick thought.
Well, yeah, you want to get as many justices in there as a Trump appointee as you can before, in case Democrats do take over. Then we're going to go from 9 to like 13. I think everybody that contributed to the Joe Biden campaign is going to get a
That's
seat
the
on the
number you
court.
need. You need 13
Yeah.
to get them the majority if they got all 4 of the rest. So, yeah, all right, we're going to leave it right there. Eric Eggers, really good to have you on, co-host of The Drill Down with Peter Schweitzer podcast. But good stuff. Good talking to your friend. We'll talk to you again soon.